We are so thrilled to have such wonderful support with all of our educational segments that we have. And we've got a wonderful segment this evening, so much to look forward to through the entire month of July. So we want to give a big thanks to our presenting sponsors this evening, West, Merck, and Daiichi Sankyo. And of course, we have additional support from GSK, Lilly, Gilead, Pfizer, and Immunogen, now part of AbbVie. So we definitely have a lot of support behind bringing you these topics and experts. And as we always say, we're always looking for areas of conversations and areas of learning that are of interest to you, that are new to the breast, ovarian, and oncology space. So any ideas, any things that are of interest, please pass them our way. We are always all ears.
And tonight, we have a really wonderful lineup, and Aubrey Red is going to be starting us off with a wonderful summer sips program. It's our take on mocktails. I love this so much because I am all about no food waste. This is the ultimate no food waste on what she's putting together for us tonight. So that's very fun.
Yep, and we'll be sharing that recipe in the chat, and that'll be on our blog as well. So if you haven't checked out our summer sips that we have been putting out on social media throughout the entire summer, be sure to go to our social media and our blog for all of those zero proof recipes. And we've got plenty more to come through August as well. I do want to give just a little bit of a teaser, because with the start of the month, we know we also have our speaker series. So taking place tomorrow evening, July 11th at 6 p.m. Eastern time, we've got a really important panel of experts about a difficult topic, one that is new, but we're so thrilled to be able to bring this to our Unite for Her community. So tomorrow evening, we will be joined by certified child life specialist, Jean Hartford Todd. She'll be joining us to share insights on how to talk about cancer and other difficult conversations with your family. We'll also be joined by a Unite for Her member who will share her own experience and learnings in having those conversations with her children and family. And a representative from Kesem UPenn will be on the panel as well, because they offer a lot of supportive programs for children with parents affected by cancer. So if this is of topic of interest to any of you here, or certainly if someone that you know is struggling with working through those conversations, please have them join us. The segment will be recorded just like this evening's and will be on our Her library as well. But Jean is an expert and has been working in this space for quite a while. So she'll be sharing a lot of great information and tips on that. So we are super excited to continue our Summer Sips series this evening. So we've been featuring plenty of zero proof drink recipes throughout the entire summer months, so that we all have options if we are choosing to abstain from alcohol or just imbibing a little bit less. And I love a jam jar recipe. I love Aubrey for following this, so let me bring her on with us. For those of you that may not know Aubrey, she is one of our senior culinary dietitians, truly amazing, leading our Plantuary Initiative, National Nutrition Month, and so much creative work that she brings to the Unite for Her community. So tonight, she will be doing a little mixology in her kitchen.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to start out our workshop tonight with a little sip, a little beverage, because I feel like it's so nice, especially as we're all kind of together, to have a little something to sip on. So I would encourage all of you to go grab something to sip on as well while you're listening in. But like Erin said, all month long, last month and next month, really the whole summer, we have our Summer Sips series. Say that 5 times fast. However, our Summer Sips is our program to come to you and share zero proof, meaning zero alcohol recipes that you can enjoy all summer long. So we have so many different recipes. We've had a few come out. We still have a few to come. And we hosted our friends at Ritual at our June virtual hangout. We'll be having one of our bartender friends in our August virtual hangout. We really want to highlight all the versatility of these different ingredients and how we can make delicious mocktails and zero proof cocktails at home. So like Sue said, today is a jam jar cocktail that she loves, and it's so fun because it is a very low waste recipe. So the concept of a jam jar cocktail is that you take a jar of jam, one that you have mostly finished. And I know I've been there where it's almost done and there's just jam all over the inside, but you can't actually scrape it out with a spoon or a knife and you don't know what to do. So you're probably just washing it and maybe saving it for later. However, now we can use that jam instead of letting it go to waste or letting it go down the drain. So I don't have an almost used jam jar. So it's not going to be the perfect example, but I am using jam today. However, you can make this drink directly in that jam jar. If you're almost out of jam and you just have a little bit left in there, I'm going to make it in a shaker just because, again, I do have quite a bit of jam still. However, just so the concept is there. So you can use any type of jam you would like. I actually thought it would be really fun. I got this prickly pear jam when I went to Arizona last year, and I love the taste of prickly pear. And I also feel like it's very fun in a beverage. So I'm going to use that jam in my recipe today. Now, if you have a jar and it's almost done, you probably don't know how much jam is in there. That's okay. Hopefully you have at least a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons. What we're going to do today, I'm going to scoop in 2 tablespoons into my shaker. So I have a half tablespoon measure here. So if you see me scoop it more than twice, that's why. So we'll do 1, 2. Let me actually just use my spoon here to help out. 2. And then I'll just get a nice heaping one to finish us off there. So that's 3 and 4. All right, so you saw that was a very gelatinous consistency texture. If it's something like a preserve, it might be a little bit more smooth. However, we're going to do a lot of shaking. So there's no worry there if you're thinking it's a really jelly texture. How will that go in the drink? It really smooths out so beautifully. So I have my prickly pear jelly in there. Now I'm going to put in a couple basil leaves. So the recipe calls for about 4 basil leaves. I'm trying to find 4 bigger pieces. So I'm going to take those off. I'm going to pop them into the shaker. And I'm just going to take my spoon and I'm going to kind of muddle it. So what I'm doing to muddle is I'm just kind of pressing down onto the basil, giving it all a good mix together, squashing it up. What you can also do is you can take your herb, because basil is not the only herb you have to use. You could use something like mint, or you could use really any other herbs you have in the garden. If you tear them up, helps to kind of open up the flavor a little bit too, especially so you don't have to do as much kind of mashing and muddling. All right, now that I've got that all muddled together, what I'm going to do is I need some lemon juice. So you could take any citrus. I am going to use a lemon today, but you could use an orange or a lime, whatever you have on hand. And I want about 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to take half first and see how much I get from that. And I like a brighter, more zesty kind of mocktail. So if I've got a little extra, that's okay with me. All right, so I need to juice the other side. So I'll juice that here. And I've got my 1 tablespoon. So I'll take that top off my juicer. I'm going to pour in my 1 tablespoon of juice. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to put a little ice in it. So you want about a half a cup of ice. Really just a few pieces to make sure that it's getting nice and cold. I'm going to take the lid, or if this is a jam jar, just put the lid back on your jar, and I'm going to give it a really nice, thorough shake. Now, if we remember, again, the jelly was a little bit gelatinous, so we want to make sure we're giving it a good shake so that everything gets combined. All right, so I'll take the lid off here. I'll give it a little rinse to make it a little easier. So what we're going to do really is we're going to strain this into our glass, and then we're just going to top it off with a little bit of seltzer. So let me grab my glass out of the freezer here. I wanted to keep it nice and chilled, and I have a beautiful spherical piece of ice in there. I'm going to take it and I'm going to strain my jam jar liquid. And I like to just give it a good shake, make sure we're getting all of it out of there. And then we're just going to top it off with some seltzer. So I have here This is mandarin orange seltzer. I thought that that would kind of tie in nicely with the citrus. You could use plain seltzer. You could use berry seltzer. Again, really whatever you have on hand. We're flexible. We don't like food waste here. So we want you to use whatever you have. So that's what it looks like. At least for me, I have a pale pink color, but of course we want to make it look beautiful and nice. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a couple basil leaves here. I'm going to stick those into my jam jar mocktail. And I also pulled out my peeler. I'm going to take just a little peel of my lemon and I'm going to put on a nice little lemon twist with that. I thought that would be a nice, fun addition. So I have my piece of lemon. I'll twist it here, put that right on the edge. And then I have my jam jar mocktail that I made with my beautiful prickly pear. So again, super flexible, super easy recipe, and helps to create less space because we're using that jam that we have left over in our jar. So cheers, everybody. I hope you enjoy a jam jar at home. And I hope you enjoy all of the Summer Sips recipes that we have coming in your direction from last month all the way through next month. So I hope you all enjoy. Anybody have any questions?
No, we had one that said, could we use pineapple and sage? And I'm like, okay, that sounds amazing,
Ooh,
right?
that does sound
That
delicious.
sounds delicious. I think I'm going to do it, Amy. Oh my God, I really like that. It was a good recommendation, good flavors together. So yeah, no questions, just all about sounding delicious.
Great,
Aubrey.
great.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Aubrey.
Thanks, Aubrey.
Yeah.
All right, Erin, I think we're at that moment, which we're really excited about, that we get the opportunity to introduce Dr. Reeder. And she is a renowned author, licensed speaker, therapist, a true expert in her field with a doctorate in couples and family therapy. She has a master's in social work and a certification in prolonged exposure trauma therapy. She brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to her practice, and as a visionary behind Soul Care Services and Manifesting Her Academy, Dr. Reeder has spent over the last 19 years transforming lives. Her comprehensive services not only educate and inform healing, but they also inspire women to overcome their emotional roadblocks of insecurity and self-sabotage. Her motto, an empowered soul has no limits. I love it, Dr. Reeder. Dr. Reeder, we are needing this tonight. We can see from our chat that we have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and all very warranted. So thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you greatly.
Thank you for having me. I am super excited to be here tonight, ladies. How are you feeling? Are you enjoying this heat? Are you staying cool and hydrated? That's important in this hot weather. So, as Erin mentioned earlier, I was with you all back in May when we spoke about PTSD and recurrence risk. And so tonight is a follow-up to that, where I'll be helping you to create your very own VIP recovery plan, right? So before I get started, I have a couple questions for you guys. I want you to interact with me if you can, if you're able. I want you to put a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard of a recovery plan. 2, if you have not. Have you ever heard of a recovery plan? Put 1 in the chat if you have. 2, if you have not. Okay, so a lot of you have not heard of a recovery plan. Great. Another question, put 1 in the chat if you've ever done a recovery plan. And number 2, if you have not. If you have done one, put a 1 in the chat. Put 2 if you have not. So many of you have not done a recovery. Awesome. So this is something new for all of us to do together. How exciting is that? Awesome sauce. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to give you a couple of directions. It's kind of instructions, if you will, if you're able. As Erin mentioned earlier, you guys were all sent a worksheet, right? So we're going to use that together to build your recovery plan. We'll get to that page last, but if you don't have it, just grab a piece of paper, if you will, a pen, because you're going to do some writing. There's going to be some engagement as we go through this presentation. Okay, you guys are ready? So I'm going to share my slides. Give me a second. And all right, here we go. Here are the slides. And so many of you have mentioned that you have not heard of a recovery plan. Very few of you have, but the majority of you have not completed one for yourself. And so it's called VIP recovery plan because you guys are very important people. You're a very important person, right? So I called it VIP because we need to see ourselves as that, right? Because we are very important. We are a priority when it comes to our health and well-being. So let's jump right into this, shall we? So what is the purpose of a recovery plan? To sum it up, it's really your blueprint of how you're deciding to manage your health. How are you going to manage your well-being? Listen, life, as I say, is lifing, right? Every day is different, right? You have your good days and you'll have your not so good days. And then some days we may find ourselves in a bit of an emotional crisis. And so a recovery plan is really your approach, your blueprint of how you're going to regain some sense of control over your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, especially when we've experienced great adversity in our lives, especially when it comes to our health, whether it be cancer, whether it be other ailments we may be experiencing. Having a plan to manage your health and your well-being as you recover is important because everyone's recovery journey is personal and it's different, right? Why? Because you matter. This is why it's important to have a plan for yourself. In fact, I was sharing with Aaron earlier, I've done this presentation for several times in other platforms where you can take the handout that you have. We'll talk about that a little later on and create miniature recovery plans that you can carry with you in your wallet, in your pocket, or your purse, whatever you may carry as a reminder of what do I need to do in the moment. And so here's a kind of a copy of one that my first one I did. And then this is the second one that I did with my nephews. And so I think regardless of the age, we should always have something in place as a reminder of how to take care of ourselves, right? So that's the purpose of having a recovery plan, right? Type 1 in the chat if we understand. Type 2 if you have some questions. Okay, great. I see some ones. Great. All right. So many of you may be asking, so what's some of the components of a recovery plan? Well, that's a good question, right? In your recovery plan, it has various components, right? So one of the components of managing your well-being, especially if you have dealing with some health matters, is medical follow-up, right? We have to keep up on our appointments, regular checkups, screenings, medication management, making sure you have maybe your pill bottle and your days filled with your medications. If medications aren't working for you, making sure you're advocating for yourself to address those matters with your doctor. So a part of a recovery plan is also your medical follow-up. Then there's physical activity. I think for many of us, oftentimes this can be a bit of a challenge where we have some tailored exercises that we may have, some routines to build our strength and endurance. For example, I too am a cancer survivor of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I remember post chemo, my brain told me I can jump right back into doing the things I used to do, but my body said, "Have 2 seats, ma'am." But I had to start slow, so I started to walk, and walking became my routine, right? Walking, I love the air, fresh air. I just love being outdoors. For me, it was very therapeutic. So having something physical movement in your body is helpful. Not only is it helpful for your physical being, but also good for your emotional being. And it's a way to clear your thoughts in your mind, right? So having some exercises, doing something in the house, maybe it's chair aerobics, maybe it's we may not lift weights, but maybe it's doing something in the house that keeps you moving. Maybe it's cleaning, maybe it's, you know, whatever that may be for you. Again, this is tailored to what you feel you could do. So this is a component that we can have in our recovery plan, which is physical activity. And then nutrition is important. Having a balanced diet, whether you're going through treatment or post-treatment, nutrition is very, very important. Having a balanced diet helps with your healing, also, but helps with your well-being and a sense of self, right? As I shared with you, I'm also a cancer survivor, or been through cancer and have been through treatment. And when I was going through my treatment, I juiced a lot. I did a lot of juicing, but carrots, spinach, different things that I was able to tolerate, because I was unable to eat some things that I um, um, enjoyed at that time. And so I continued that practice even after treatment. So having a healthy diet is very important, and it gives you energy, right? It gives you something to do. You're moving, you're juicing, you're grabbing the carrots or fruits or whatever you choose in your juice. Mental health is extremely important when you're going through any type of treatment or facing any adversity. Having a space to share, therapy, counseling, support groups, all these things help you to manage your stress, but also help you to make sense of what you're feeling and dealing with, like managing emotions, right? I felt this very helpful in my recovery plan, because there were days where I felt really depressed. I'm sure you can relate. If you can relate to any of this, just put one in the chat if you can relate. Put two in the chat if you've experienced some of these things, or if you're actually doing some of these things. But going to counseling, having a support group, having someone to talk to who understood or could just comfort me during this time was very important for my own well-being, because there were days I felt like I was losing it, right? We couldn't do the things that I once could do during that time. You know, I wanted to remain fiercely independent. Not that I wasn't going through treatment, but I needed to allow help to help. And at times that could mess with our own mental health when journeying through treatment or post-treatment, right? And then lifestyle adjustments. This is crucial when you're dealing with your recovery plan, right? Your wellness plan, because when you're dealing with health matters or just wanting to change some things about your life activities, like your habits. Some people may be cigarette smokers. People may have some activities that you may participate in that may not be the best, but what can you do to adjust those things to promote your overall well-being, right? And so these are some things that we will cover when we're building your recovery plan. Yes, I see some ones, I see some twos. Yeah, so some of us are already doing these things, and you can relate to what I'm sharing. Yeah, you know, when you're talking about recovery and healing, it's a journey. It's a journey of grace, I say. A journey of grace, because we have to give ourselves grace through the process, that we're not always okay and we don't always feel okay, even post treatment. Then you have your ups and then you have your downs, and you have your days you don't know how to feel, what to feel, or what you're feeling, right? And so having a recovery plan gives you a sense of um, control, so to speak. It empowers you to be an active participant in your health, right? And managing your health. And so, how do you create and use your recovery plan? This is very, 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 very important, right? So first thing first is that you have to understand and identify what your risks are. What are your triggers? And then assess your needs, right? Especially when you've gone through treatment or have received a diagnosis. I know for me, whenever I still have to go to the doctors for follow-ups, I still get anxious. So having to schedule an appointment or waiting for results makes me very anxious, which is a trigger of mine, which means I have to now resort to my supports to reassure me, to comfort me, because it can become very anxiety provoking, right? Knowing the potential risk that are around you that can impact your health. For example, if you have a spouse or someone who you're living with, or if you a roommate and say they're cigarette smokers, well, that's a big risk, right? And then we have to adjust the lifestyle, maybe adjust how they choose to participate in that habit. Maybe they have to go outside, or perhaps you no longer can do this in the home, or whatever that may be. There are some things that we have to be able to identify that's a risk to our health, right? Whether it's something that we're doing or in the environment that's unhealthy for you in your recovery journey. And what are your triggers, right? Knowing what that may be, and assessing what you need. Because whenever in the day to day, it's important to check in with yourself, to ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? I'm feeling a bit anxious. What do I need? I'm feeling sad. What is it that I need? So being able to assess those things is important as you build this recovery plan. And then we have to develop strategies, right? It's one thing to know, but it won't work unless you do something, right? So you have to take action. So we have to create some strategies, right? What can we do? Now, I always tell folks, don't create big steps, because what happens oftentimes, just like goals, if we create them too big, we become disappointed, or we feel as if it's not working. So do something small that can help you kind of relieve some of the risk, or your triggers, right? So questions you can ask is like, what do you need to assist you in the execution of your strategies, right? So for example, I know when I'm feeling anxious, I need to talk to my mom. If I'm feeling anxious and my mom's unavailable, I'll email a doctor, or if I'm in that space, I'll talk to a professional there. And I also sought therapy. So these are different things that I did for myself, to help me manage some of my own anxiety. And it'll look different for you, right? We all respond differently to to anxiety. We all respond differently to various emotions. And so you need to identify steps that works for you, right? And it's okay. You can always change them. And then it's also important to have emergency contacts and supports. I always say it's important to build a village, right? I know sometimes we would love to be able to live in a vacuum or an isolated island, but we don't. We need each other, right? We need people. And so it's important to have supports in your circle and access to when you may be facing a crisis, or having to deal with some health matters. So having a list of your doctors or hospitals or people who you can depend on to support you, right? Who's in your village of supports. And this can change, right? Doctors change. Sometimes people aren't as accessible, so you may have to find someone else to be that support for you, and that's okay, right? Regular monitoring. The good thing about having a recovery plan, you can see what works and what doesn't work, right? So we can always assess what it is that we're doing that's helpful, and what it is that we're trying to do that's it's not really helping. I'm not really motivated to do that. It's okay to change that. So we have to constantly assess what our progress is when we're using our plan, right? And having a daily routine, right? Medication management, exercise, nutrition, all those things we talked about early on, and the components of a recovery plan, right? So all of these things is what you kind of look at to create a plan for yourself. And then we pull these things out and actually identify activities or components in each area that make sense for you, right? That you can use and apply. And the great thing about this is you can share this with your village. Maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your children, so they can be aware to support you in your wellness journey, your recovery plan, right? And then you can also downsize it, as I shared with you earlier, to a smaller version of this. And we can talk about that as we build out our plan. And so I know I said a mouthful, right? If you understand and follow what I'm saying so far, please put a 1 in the chat. If you need me to back up, ask a question to what you need clarification in, if any. Great. We all are following along. Awesome sauce. This is good. Okay, great. So the next thing is the benefits. So, okay, we talked about building this recovery plan. We know the purpose of it. We know the components. We talked about how to create one, right? But what's the benefits? I have this plan now. What? How is it supposed to help me? Well, for me, I know it gives me a peace of mind because I have something to go to, right? And it also makes you feel a bit in control of your of your health choices and decisions because you're creating the blueprint for yourself. And you can breathe easy when you have people in support of you actively involved also in your care, right? So you're being proactive in your health management, and it's empowering, right? Because you get to decide what works and what doesn't work. You get to advocate for yourself when having to deal with other professionals of what's working and what's not working, right? So having a plan in place is not just for you, but also it's for your supports to help you continue on your journey to recovery. I think there may be a question or comment in the chat. Okay, there was a one. Okay, great. So these are the benefits. And so what we're going to do next is begin to build out your plan. So before we go to that, any questions before we move on to building your VIP recovery plan? Any questions? All right, no
I don't
questions.
see any, Dr. Reeder. No, I think they are following along. Well done.
Yes, awesome sauce. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Erin, I'm going to ask if you can put up the questions, the worksheet. So while we're waiting for the worksheet, this is the time for us to get our pencils and our pens out, some paper, so we can follow along the worksheet. Okay, so this is the worksheet that you were provided. And we're going to go along with the question, right? And so with this recovery plan, you can put your name on it or not. It's up to you. And so the first thing I want you to do, because this is now it's going to be interactive, I want you to actively do this as we go through this worksheet. So if you have some paper with you, great. If you can just kind of think it through, that's fine. But I want you to practice now because when this is over, I really want you to implement this on your own. And so you have a copy of this to reprint out, if you will, or to maybe save the plan and just write it on paper first and then put it on into this plan. Or you can recreate the plan with the questions. It's up to you. Again, this is your blueprint of what you're going to do to create your own very important person recovery plan, right? All right, so first things first, my red flags. What are your warning signs? Right? I know that as I shared with you earlier, whenever I have to schedule an appointment to see an oncologist, or whenever I have to wait for a test result, I get very anxious. And so my red flags is knowing that I get anxious. I'm already speaking to my supports while in the office of the doctors to kind of talk me through what I'm experiencing, right? And so what are your red flags? That's my kind of one of my telltale signs that I'm getting anxious. What are your red flags? What are some things that you that causes you to recognize that you may be going into a crisis or something's happening that's causing you to feel emotional, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's anxiety, whether it's fear, these uncomfortable emotions you may be experiencing. What does your body tell you? Or what are some thoughts that run through your mind, right? That tells you, okay, I need some support. I'm gonna give you some time to think about that, right? What are your red flags? Very anxious, nurse not able to find, yeah. That's a good one. Nurse not able to find, you're vein from chemo. When I don't get enough sleep. Yep. Anxious. Yeah. Telling people about my diet. Yeah. Any new sensation? That's a big one. Any new sensations? I can relate to that. If I get a weird feeling in my back, I'm already in a panic. Yeah, these are great responses. Anxious to forget. Yeah. See, all of these are great responses. And as I share with you all, it all looks different for all of us. So these are your telltale signs that, okay, I'm gonna need some supports because I feel myself spinning into a rabbit hole of thoughts or spinning in the space of kind of catastrophizing this experience. So this is what you would write in their box. Those things that you're talking about, you would write what your red flags are in their first box, right? That's your telltale sign that you need supports, right? And so if you was to share this, your loved ones would know that, okay, we know that these 3 things or 4 things are red flags, and mom or grandma, whomever may need some support, right? Yes, all these things are great red flags. Absolutely. So it's important that you are aware of your red flags, right? So that's your telltale sign to seek support. So number 2, what are my coping strategies, right? So in this second box, you're going to write the things that will distract you from the distress or help you through it, right? And so as I shared with you, I go for walks. Walking helps me clear my mind. Now, it depends on the weather. I have to be honest. It depends on how the weather is. If it's raining outside, it's cold, I probably won't walk. So I may listen to some music, or I may look at pictures of my nephews. I do something that will lift my spirits, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's anxiety or fear. What are strategies you're using to cope? What do you do to cope? Right? This is where you would write those things down. Praying, painting, yoga. Yes. These are great things. Yes. Listening to music. Yes. Good nutrition. These are great things to cope. So whenever you're experiencing the red flag, you know that, okay, let me now tap into some of my coping mechanisms, right? So these are good things. Mindfulness practice, breathing, right? Snuggle with your dog. Yes. Love it, right? All these things are things that you identify that will help you distract from it or help you through it. It's really calming and soothing, right? In the moment. Yes, playing with your children. Yeah, that's a good one. I love that. Playing with my nephews definitely takes me away from what I'm feeling. They bring me laughter, right? Children can bring an array of emotions. Love it. Right. So this is the section you'll put in what your coping strategies will be, right? And this could even include a therapist. This can include a doctor, right? It doesn't have to necessarily have to be an activity, but it can also be reaching out to someone to support you, through it, right? Dancing with your kids. That's fun. Yes, yes, right? Praying, singing, my primary doctor, absolutely, right? So see how all of you have something in common, but also different coping, and that's fine, right? So you will put those things that you identify in your box 2. And in your box 3, right? I want you to think about the places that make you feel better, right? List of places that make you feel better. Now, oftentimes we may have places like, for example, I love the beach and warm weather and water. Now, I'm living in Philadelphia, and in December, there's no beaches or warm weather around. So I may visualize it, right? And that's okay. That's another mindfulness technique that could take you away from the reality of what you're feeling to bring yourself to a place of calm. The park, your garden, local parks. Yes. Places that make you feel the beach for sure. Yes, the beach where I'm sitting right now. Okay. Yeah, so we all should have a place that we can go to, whether it's in our mind or physically, that makes you feel better. All right, we all need that space. Maybe it's even the sofa cuddled up in your blanket or your favorite pillow and watching a movie, right? Or whatever that is for you, right? What are your backyard, your sister with your sister? Yes. Right? These are important things. This is where you get your comfort, right? Your hammock. Oh, I love hammocks. Yes. This is great. So this is where you would put what places make you feel better with your mom. Yeah, yeah. Right? Good stuff, ladies. Good stuff, y'all. Okay. Erin, do you mind if you scroll down further? All right. So in section 4, this is your village. I always refer to my village as my circle of strength, right? Because we know even though we're resilient, we don't do it alone. There are people in our corner cheering us on, supporting us, taking care of the back end of things where we're unable. This is your village, right? Who are the people that you can count on and ask for help, right? List those people who you believe are dependable for you, that you can trust and can provide you with a safe space to share. Because sometimes we just need to talk. And if you know that they can just listen and be that support for you, then include them in your village. Who's in your village, right? Who can you contact to ask for help? And I know sometimes this was a big challenge for me, because I don't know if you think like me, sometimes we can be fiercely independent and we've just been doing things on our own and for ourselves, and we just get it done. But there are times when I had to learn how to allow help to help. And it was very humbling, right? But that also allowed me to see that I was loved, right? Going through a difficult time. But it also gave your loved ones a sense of purpose in helping you through that journey also. So who's your village? Who are the people that you can depend on, or that can provide you a space, a safe space to share if you need to talk, right? Your support group, your BFF. Yes. We all should have someone in our circle, right? We should never go through something as any hard adversity alone, right? Yes, pastor, husband, sister, mother-in-law, yes. This is great, right? These are the people you would place in your section 4, right? Yeah, unite for her, absolutely, right? This is a source of support, absolutely, right? Yeah, so you will identify those folks in your village in section 4, and you will put their number, right? And you know what's interesting? I remember one time I was going through treatment and my phone died, but I had my little handy dandy plan with a number. I said, oh my gosh, and it's terrible to admit, without your phone these days, you don't remember a number. Unfortunately, what you need to remember in difficult times. And so having this accessible to you or to your loved ones is good, because they may not always know the numbers to, you know, your village of supports. And so list your names and your contact information. Section 5 is what agencies or professionals can help you, right? This is where you will list organizations or professionals or a certain person within the agency that you feel that is important. Their contact number and location, right? That you can access, or your loved ones can access, to help access for you, because they have it. If you choose to share this, they will also be aware to help get you there, or to help you navigate and access that support on your behalf. So what agencies or professionals that you can, this could be a therapist, this can be, you know, Unite for Her, it can be maybe it's another organization, you know, a support group, whatever that may be. You can place those agencies or professionals here. It could be a social worker, it could be a nutritionist, your primary doctor, whatever that may be, they would go in this section here, right? I think there was a question. What is this? You talk like, okay. So section 6, how can I make my environment safe, right? These are things that you can do to change your environment. As I was sharing earlier, sometimes you may live with people who may be cigarette smokers, or maybe engaging in activities that's unhealthy or unsafe for ourselves, right? And so it's important for you to be aware of your environment, whatever that may be for you, right? How can you make your environment safe, right? I know we have a way in which we live our lives. Maybe some of us are living alone, and that's fine too. But what can you do in your environment? Maybe change, do some reorganization in the home. Maybe it's change around the bedroom, or change the living room to give it a new feeling. It could be a number of things that you can do to make your environment safe. Or maybe you feel my environment is safe, I don't need to make any changes, and that's fine as well. But if you feel like I can do something to make my environment safe, whether it's in the home or in your comings and goings, right? Yeah, you got a bed adjustment. Yes, yep. You know, having a good bed is great, right? Yeah, helps you sleep better, become more comfortable at night, right? Yeah, I know I have a friend who did something similar, getting a new bed, and their headaches kind of dissipated, right? So it was a matter of just changing the mattress to something that was adjustable. And so yeah, so we can do things to make our environment, removing clutter. Yep, yep, removing clutter. These are good things. Yeah. So anything that you feel like you can do to make your environment, whether it's in the car, whether it's where you any environments you may be going to or coming from, changing your route, um, or within the home, you get to decide, communicate needs. Yeah, I think that's very important, communicating needs, because oftentimes I find that many of us as independent adults, we choose not to maybe share when we are in need of things. And I find that oftentimes, and this may be a hard truth, that oftentimes our pride gets in the way, our pride and our ego. And so when we're really in need of something, we don't want to share because it could be a bit embarrassing. We don't want to be judged. And so we keep it to ourselves. But I learned a hard lesson through this, was the moment you think you know it all is the moment you miss out on the opportunity to grow. And I learned that truth in this journey because I didn't like the extra help. I had all the answers, right? And so I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have all the answers. And I needed to be able to allow folks to help and to do what they do the way that they do it that was helpful to me, right? So yeah, these are great responses. So social media, of course, yes, less social media. Although sometimes it's entertaining, but having less of it, it could be definitely helpful. Yeah, I always want to come across as strong and hate me. Yeah, vulnerability is scary. Vulnerability uh puts you in a space where you feel open and seen. But I believe that there's strength there also in being vulnerable. Because you're letting it be known that, hey, I'm not okay and I do need the help and support. And so I think oftentimes I can speak for myself, being vulnerable causes me to go get in my head. I'll get in my head and all of my thoughts, and I start thinking of all things that could go wrong and what they may say, and I just don't do it, right? And that's not the best way to handle things, right? But we're all human. But if you're aware of that, you definitely could work on that to change that in a way that is conducive to your well-being, right? And so how are we doing so far, right? We got 4. So now me at 5. So at 6, it's how can I make my environment safe? Can you scroll down, Erin, to the last one? What makes me happy, right? And oftentimes, I find that in working with women and men, they have a hard time identifying what makes them happy. Um, First, it starts off as very surface. I don't think we give ourselves permission to think below the surface of what really makes me happy, right? And so when we talk about our recovery plan, I want you to dig below the surface. Yes, what makes you happy is maybe your pet, your children, but maybe something that causes you to be your authentic self. I like to sit in the rain on the porch. That makes alone in silence. That makes me happy. You know what? What makes me happy is not having to do something that I don't want to do, creating boundaries, right? So being able to say no, right? Volunteering a local, yes, traveling to somewhere, yes. Those, yes, doing exercises, your cat's teaching, right? These things make you happy, right? And I've also learned that doing some of the hard stuff allowed me to express even more happiness because I was able to free myself from my own, what you want to call it, bondage of the fear of what people may think by saying no, by creating a boundary. So I found peace and joy in that, and it caused me to be happy within myself during my journey, right? Reading a book, those things, yes, make you happy. So when you're completing this, I want you to list those things, but I also want you to dig a little deeper, right? About what really make you happy in in this journey of recovery for your plan, right? And I think sometimes even putting being alone, solitude is healthy as long as it's not a constant place you're residing in, right? Because then that can be something else like depression, right? So what makes you happy, right? List some things that makes you feel that your life is worth living, right? What's exciting? Wearing clothing that feels, yes, yes, wearing clothing that feels soft, yes. I mean, whatever that is for you, you can write that in a box, right? Okay. So that's the 7 sections, taking every day a moment at a time. Yes. Yes. I like that. You know, this is when you appreciate the simple things of life. I think sometimes as adults, we don't slow down enough to appreciate the simple things, or sometimes we just aren't paying attention enough to appreciate the small things. And maybe we are, but we're all in different spaces and places. And so I think that was a good one. Singing in your kitchen, that's fun. Yeah, singing in your kitchen, making a good meal, listen to your favorite tune, any kind of purple flower. I like that. Yeah. So your recovery plan should be a feel-good plan, right? All of these things helps you really reduce your SUDS. And what your SUDS is your subjective unit distress scale. We call that in kind of a clinical term. So it's your SUDS. So if you're feeling anxious, so from a 0 to 10, if you find yourself always at an 8 or anywhere above a 6 to a 10 in anxiety or fear or sadness, we want to do some things using your plan to bring you to a 5, maybe to a 2, right? To a place of calm, right? And so being able to assess where you are on that scale from 0 to 10, right? These are some things that we need to do to bring ourselves from that high space of a 10 to anywhere below a 5, 4, and 3, right? To kind of live in that area, right? And so the recovery plan helps you kind of just to process these things, put things in place for yourself that you can actually execute, right? It's one thing to do this work, it's one thing to identify it, but it's another thing to actually do it, right? It don't work if we don't work it, right? And so what I showed you earlier, the smaller version of it, all I did was take one thing from each section and put it on the card. So I took a 3x5 card. In each section, I put what a trigger was, and then one thing from each section as part of my recovery plan, right? It's kind of old and beat down, but this is what I did, right? And this is the one I did with my nephews. Something simple, more, kind of arts and arts and craft type of look. I did this with a group of friends, and we actually took a picture of our hands on the back of our recovery plan. So you can see all of our hands in the back as a way of saying that we're each other's village, and we all created our plan. So if you do a smaller version of it by taking one thing from each section and put it on a 3x5 card, you can decorate it, you can draw, you can do whatever it is that you want to do, because it's your recovery plan. You can keep it in your wallet, your purse, whatever, on your fridge, this as a reminder, or keep the actual worksheet. You can recreate it and write it in a document form, share it with your village or not. It's up to you. It's your blueprint. This is what you will use to make yourself feel safe and in a space of wellness and improving your well-being in this journey of healing. And so that's how you create a plan. This is the purpose and how to use it, and it can change, right? So what you may put down today can change next week. It could change tomorrow. You may think about it overnight and want to change something on it. That's fine. Again, this is your blueprint. You create what will work for you. Okay. Any questions? Was that helpful? I hope you had fun and enjoyed this process. Yeah, awesome sauce. Yes. I find about people are so quick to judge what they don't understand. And what I had to learn is, and we all have heard the saying, people will think and believe what they choose to. But at the end of the day, you, me, us, we choose what we tend to take on, right? We choose our battles. And so if you have a way of coping, and anxiety is something that happens, and you choose to cope in a way that's helpful for you, that's that's what you choose to do. And people may not always understand it, and they don't have to understand it. But if it's helping you and it's healthy for you, then do that, right? And be around those people who do understand and don't judge. Yes, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad this was helpful. Yeah, I'm excited. This was great. That's, I struggle with the thought of recurrence. I think that's as part of the trauma, right? When we've experienced trauma in our lives, trauma is a distressful experience, right? It really impacts your mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, right? And so when you've gone through a bout of any illness, you do fear recurrence, right? Which is why I shared with you earlier, just the thought of going to the doctors or feeling a weird pain in my back or any aches, I immediately reach out to my doctor. I'm like, hey, I'm feeling the same pain. Because in my head, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's back. And now inside, I'm freaking out. So that's common, which is why it's so important to have this plan in place. Because we know that for us, this is a big deal for us. So having someone to help kind of calm us and talk us through it, because what we're fearing is not the reality, right? We're just in a space of experience, the past experience. And so we are scared, right? And it's okay, right? But we can't stay there, especially if we have supports to help us through that, or something that we can do to soothe us as we go through, right? You're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed this. But let this not just be a presentation or that you just listen, but I really challenge you to take what you've learned and use it, right? It only works if you work it, right? And it's your unique VIP plan. So whatever you create is your blueprint, right? Yeah, you're welcome.
And I love, Dr. Reeder, the activity of having a card to take with you, because I think, as people might be experiencing these out of the home, or when they're sitting in a waiting room, or they're waiting for the doctor to come in or something, it's nice to have that tangible piece that if they're out of their comfort zone, if they're out of their house, if they're out of their couch, if they're away from their garden or their yard or away from their pets, they have these other reminders to lean on, and they can kind of use that piece of information or that little card that perhaps just looking at it creates some comfort. Like you said, on the back of yours, you have pictures of hands of all of your friends and your support. So even just visually seeing that can bring a sense of comfort. I love having that travel piece, that we can bring with us. That's great.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was actually a reminder for me also of things that I can also adjust in my day-to-day, right? If you're like me, life is lifing for all of us, right? And so, yeah.
So wonderful, Dr. Reeder. Thank you so much. As you can see, it's a very difficult subject, right? And a lot of fear. And I know that fear, as a 20-year survivor. And I know just the act of making that plan is going to give me empowerment, and just to have it written down, right? And these are all real emotions that everybody is experiencing, and you have the right to feel them. That is normal. And when we understand that is normal, then we can move forward. And even the act of walking is moving forward. And it's amazing what that can do, as small as that seems. There's a lot of studies around the act of walking forward to just quiet the mind and get you into a better place. So walking forward, having a plan, I feel like you have given us some really great tools.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for having me.